Welcome back, everyone. Before we dive in, make sure you drop your thoughts and the lessons you took from this story in the comments. And don't forget to like and subscribe. Let's get into it. Do not embarrass me tonight. You are too plain for my wealthy colleagues. Stay in your lane. Caleb delivered the words while adjusting his Hermes tie in our bedroom mirror, speaking as casually as if he were commenting on the weather. I stood behind him with the cocktail dress I had been about to put on for the Meridian Club dinner, watching his reflection for any sign that he recognized the cruelty of what he had said. There was none. He kept right on perfecting the knot, oblivious to the fact that his plain wife had personally approved every one of his colleagues' memberships to the very club where the dinner would occur, and that the building they treated like a temple to success bore my name on its deed. I hung the dress back in the closet, my movements deliberate and calm. "Of course," I said. "I understand." He smiled then, satisfied, the expression he wore when he believed a negotiation had gone his way. "Good. These Atlanta clients expect a certain standard," he continued. "Morrison's wife spent 2 hours at the salon today just for this dinner. Blackstone's wife flew up to New York last week for a new outfit." He turned to face me. "At this level, appearance matters. First impressions are everything." For years of marriage, and he still thought I did not grasp basic social concepts. I wanted to tell him I had watched those same wives stumble through small talk at a dozen events, their salon hair and designer clothes unable to mask the hunger for approval. Instead, I lifted his already perfect tie, smoothing it like it mattered. "What time will you be home?" "Late. These dinners run long, especially when we are closing deals." He checked his Rolex, the one he had bought to impress Morrison, never realizing Morrison's watch was a cheap replica I had chosen to ignore when reviewing his membership application. "There is leftover pasta if you get hungry." The leftover pasta from 3 nights ago, when he had ordered Italian from the restaurant that charged $40 for basic marinara because they delivered to Meridian members. He had eaten half and complained the sauce was too acidic. I had finished a deli sandwich and did not comment. After he left, trailing cologne that cost more than our utilities, I sat at our small dining table and opened my laptop, not to check balances or scroll timelines, but to review the quarterly reports for Monroe Holdings, the portfolio my grandmother built from nothing, the empire she constructed while men like Caleb dismissed her as furniture in their boardrooms. A message from the club's general manager flashed across my screen. Maurice Blackwood. "Mrs. Hartwell, tonight's dinner is set. Your husband's table is arranged for 12. Shall we maintain standard protocol?" Standard protocol meant treating me like a ghost when Caleb was present, pretending the owner did not exist. I had maintained that charade for 3 years, watching Caleb preen in my building while telling people his wife did administration, with a dismissive wave, as if I filed invoices for a living. "Yes," I typed. "For now." The apartment felt smaller after he left. Or maybe it just felt honest. Without his presence demanding space, requiring accommodation, needing constant validation that he was climbing fast enough, I could breathe. In our bedroom closet, I pushed aside his row of suits, Armani, Hugo Boss, Tom Ford, to the back wall where I kept a single garment bag. Inside hung a Saint Laurent dress my grandmother bought in 1982, the year she made her first million. She wore it exactly once, to the shareholder meeting where she gained controlling interest in her first commercial property. "Save it," she told me in the hospital. "Wear it the day you stop hiding." I brushed the fabric. It was perfect. Caleb would call it plain, black, simple, unadorned. He never understood that its power came from what it did not need. My phone rang. "I need to see you," said my cousin Janet without preamble. "Rodney's at it again." I found receipts. "Come over," I said. "Caleb's at a dinner." "Where else?" She laughed, but it was bitter. Must be nice being married to someone important enough for Meridian. I swallowed the irony. Janet arrived 20 minutes later. Her handbag cost more than our monthly rent. Her face carried the exhaustion money could not fix. She collapsed on our second-hand couch, the one Caleb called embarrassing whenever we had company, and cried before she removed her coat. 23 years old, she said. His personal trainer. Can you believe it? I'm 42, Audrey. When did I become disposable? I sat beside her with tissues and silence. There were no good words for discovery, only air and time. "Rodney does not even hide it anymore," she continued. "He takes her to Meridian, the private dining room. The staff at my club were witnessing the destruction of my cousin's marriage in my private dining room. I made a mental note to review Rodney's membership status. Standards mattered, whether or not Caleb believed I understood such concepts. What are you going to do? I asked. Leave. Take what I can and start over. She looked around our apartment, the shabby furniture, cramped space, absence of show. You are lucky. Caleb may not be rich, but at least he comes home to you. I nearly laughed. Caleb came home to the idea of me, the convenient wife who kept his life running while staying out of his real world. But Janet did not need my confession. She needed a couch and someone not to judge her. After she left, I stood at our window, watching the city lights. Somewhere out there, Caleb sat in my club at my table, surrounded by people who owed their membership to my approval, telling them his wife was too plain for their company. The thought should have hurt. Instead, it crystallized what had been forming since I located my grandmother's will. Being underestimated is a weapon, if you know when to reveal your power. Tonight would not be that night. But soon. Monday morning arrived with Caleb already gone, leaving cologne and a note to pick up his suits. Mrs. Johnson's dry cleaner sat 3 blocks away, wedged between a takeout shop and a failing bookstore. The kind of neighborhood Caleb called transitional when explaining why we lived there. Mrs. Hartwell, she greeted, brightening. I have Mr. Hartwell's suits. Such beautiful fabric. He likes to look professional, I said. She carried out 5 suits wrapped in plastic and rang them up. I saw him last Tuesday at that fancy Meridian club, she added matter of fact. My nephew works valet there. Very exclusive place. Tuesday. Caleb had called that morning about a client emergency, said he would be in depositions all day. He has a lot of meetings there, I replied evenly. Yes, with that elegant woman. Lovely laugh, Mrs. Johnson said. Every Tuesday, same table by the window. Must be important. My fingers tightened on my card, but my face stayed neutral. He works with many important people. Outside, I stood holding $5,000 of fabric and processed what she had handed me. Every Tuesday, the same woman, the same table. Caleb had worked late every Tuesday for 2 months. Always a crisis. Back home, I hung the suits in his designated order and received a text from Janet. Can I come by? Rodney's at a conference. I cannot stand the quiet. She arrived with coffee and pastries from the expensive bakery Caleb said we could not afford and sat at my small table, picking apart a croissant without eating. Bathroom? She asked, rising. Then I heard her steps in the hallway. Audrey, she called. Where are blankets? Hall closet, top shelf, I said, forgetting what else was there. A breath caught in her throat, sharp and long. I found her on the floor, surrounded by papers she had knocked down. Financial statements, property deeds, investment portfolios. And, right in front, Meridian ownership documents with my name printed cleanly across the top. Audrey, she rasped. What is this? I knelt and gathered papers with steady hands. Something Caleb does not know. Does not know, she repeated. You own Meridian? The club Rodney and Caleb practically live in. My grandmother left it to me. Among other things. Janet scanned the documents, her expression shifting from shock to something harder. $80 million? And Caleb does not know. He never asked, I said. He assumed I was what I appeared to be. Why hide it? I rested my back against the wall. Grandma spent 40 years being invisible while men stole her ideas. She wanted to know whether Caleb loved me or the idea of what I could give him. Janet's eyes darkened. And Tuesday lunches with that woman, every week, same table? She shut her mouth, reconsidering. You are planning something. I am waiting, I said. There is a difference. She helped return everything to its place, then sat with a new electricity. We are both guilty, she said. Hiding who we are. Taking crumbs. Before I could answer, my phone rang. Great news, Caleb said without greeting. Morrison just called. I made senior partner, the youngest in the firm's history. Congratulations, I began, but he plowed on. Celebration dinner tomorrow at Meridian. Black tie. Very exclusive. Partners only, though. Wives will have their event next month, something more appropriate to your interests. More appropriate to my interests. As if he knew what my interests were. I understand, I said. You are not upset, he asked. Morrison's wife always throws fits. He chuckled. You know your place. After he hung up, Janet stared at me. He actually said that. He says a lot, I said. That night, he practiced his acceptance speech in the mirror while I lay on the bed and listened. He thanked Morrison for mentorship, Blackstone for partnership, and a consultant named Charmaine for her support. Not one mention of the wife who typed his briefs with a broken wrist, who worked 2 jobs while he finished law school, who attended every meaningless picnic smiling through thin stories. While he delivered his speech to his reflection, I retrieved my keys and drove to my storage unit. Caleb thought I could not afford a car. He did not know about the BMW registered to V. Monroe Holdings. Inside the unit stood everything he had never asked about: my grandmother's furniture, boxes of photographs, and a leather journal. I sat on the concrete and read under fluorescent light. The handwriting began strong and ended shaky, documenting every slight and theft, and every triumph. The first profitable quarter, the first million, the first property, the purchase of Meridian from a man who had laughed at her proposals. The final line, written a week before she died, made me close the book and hold it against my chest. Audrey will understand the value of being underestimated. Let them think you are nobody, until you show them everything. I drove home at midnight with the journal on the seat. Caleb was asleep, sprawled across the bed in his Harvard Law t-shirt, claiming 3/4 of the mattress, even in sleep. The next morning looked like any other, except I knew it would be different. In the kitchen, I organized the pantry the way he liked, lining up overpriced organic pasta. He entered and adjusted his tie in the microwave's reflection. After a stretch of silence, he dropped the line that started this: "Do not embarrass me tonight. You are too plain for my wealthy colleagues. Stay in your lane." The can of tomatoes in my hand weighed 14 ounces. I focused on that. I placed it on the shelf. "Of course," I said. Janet, in the living room, set her coffee cup down with a sharp clink. As soon as the front door closed, she appeared in the kitchen doorway, fire in her face. "I am going after him," she said. "He needs to hear." I raised a hand. "No, this is my battle. It needs planning." She studied my face, then sank into the couch. "For years of this," she whispered. "And you just take it. Tell me what you see," I said. "All of it." She did. Missed birthdays for golf with Morrison, canceled anniversaries for impromptu strategy with Blackstone. The way he introduced me at events. "This is Audrey, she does admin," with a shooing gesture. "He does not see you," she said. "You are functionality. What would hurt him most?" "Public humiliation," I said. "Undeniable and witnessed." She blinked, then nodded. "You are going to end him at Meridian." I pulled out a number I had saved as MB emergency. My grandmother had given it to me with one instruction: "Use this when the time is right." "Mrs. Hartwell," Maurice Blackwood answered on the second ring, voice steady, southern, and certain. "I wondered when you would call." "Hello, Maurice." "About time," he said softly. 20 years I worked for your grandmother. 3 I watched you tolerate that man in your house." "You knew." "Your grandmother showed me your photograph every week," he said. "This is Audrey. She will understand when she is ready." My throat tightened. "I am ready." "Good. The partners' dinner is Thursday. Your husband requested the Churchill room," he said, amused. "He has taste in rooms he cannot afford." "Arrangements. I assume you want Philip present," he said. "The photographer." "Very discreet." We planned for 20 minutes. Seating that would place Caleb where he thought he was in charge. Timing to ensure maximum visibility. The moment Maurice would make the announcement, after appetizers before the main course, when the room was warm with wine but not dulled. After we ended the call, Janet grinned. "You need clothes," she said. "You need armor." At Nordstrom's private suite, the saleswoman's eyes widened when I handed over the metal card of V. Monroe Holdings. "I need something that says power," Janet announced. "Something that makes every man stand when she walks in." We built a look that cost more than Caleb claimed we had in savings. A black Saint Laurent that seemed simple until you noticed its precision. Louis Vuitton heels that added 3 inches and changed my posture. My grandmother's diamonds from a safe deposit box Caleb did not know existed. In the mirror stood someone else. Not plain Audrey who organizes pantries and swallows insults. A woman who owns buildings and can destroy a man with a word. Janet dropped me off afterward, the bags hidden in her trunk until later. Mr. Peterson, our doorman, nodded without knowing that I had already authorized paperwork to double his salary when I took formal ownership of the building next month. Tuesday dawned with Caleb leaving early for strategy, which I now knew were breakfasts with Charmaine Blackstone. After his rideshare turned the corner, I walked 6 blocks to the office tower with V. Monroe Holdings listed, discreet, on the directory. My office covered half the 14th floor, glass and light overlooking a city my grandmother conquered in silence. Caleb believed I spent Tuesdays at the community college taking spreadsheet classes. He loved explaining Excel to me. I pulled up Meridian's membership database, the master files containing far more than names and addresses. Every incident report, every complaint, every whispered scandal documented with care. Morrison's file came first. Inherited membership in 1998, transferred despite 3 violations for inappropriate conduct with staff. 2 settlements. 1 server transferred to our Phoenix property. Caleb idolized him, called him a titan. I made notes to seat him where he would have a perfect view of what was coming. Blackstone's file was a symphony of entitlement. His wife, Charmaine, the elegant blonde by choice rather than birth, had campaigned hard for membership. 17 letters in 2 years, each more eager than the last. Approval finally came after her father-in-law, a powerful executive in a pharmaceutical conglomerate, hinted at a license review. The weakness in her desperation would be useful. Reeves attempted a $50,000 donation to buy his way in. When told Meridian does not accept bribes, his father-in-law asked questions about our permits. Money but no class. A text from Janet. You need to see this. She arrived 20 minutes later, flushed with discovery, and handed me her phone. Charmaine's public posts served as a diary of betrayal. 12 photos in 6 months, all tagged at Meridian, all featuring Caleb at the edges. A cufflink here, a reflection there, his hand on a glass held with 3 fingers instead of 2. Power lunch with brilliant minds. Discussing futures with someone special. Some conversations change everything. Charmaine did not realize the edges are where truth lives. She has been hunting him, Janet murmured. Look at the progression. Let her mark territory, I said. After Thursday, neither of them will be welcome in any place I own. Wednesday passed in precise preparation. I confirmed with Maurice, granted Philip full access for photographs, and reviewed the proposal Caleb had left on our table. His deck was good but not great. It lacked what he never bothered to ask me about. Property holdings and connections that would have sealed any deal. Thursday was humid, the kind of weather that made Caleb angry at his hair. I made his breakfast the way he liked and listened to him complain while he adjusted 3 different ties, settling on the same Hermes he wore to every important thing. I sat on the bed with a paperback romance. A secretary inherits a fortune and ends the men who dismissed her, and turned the pages loudly. He glanced at the cover. You should read something substantial, he said. The Financial Times, perhaps. You are probably right, I replied and kept reading. He left at 7:30 p.m., explaining the dinner would run late and I should not wait up. Perhaps I could order Thai and watch something that requires no intellectual investment. The door closed. 20 minutes later, I began the ritual my grandmother taught me, not beauty, presence. The dress moved like shadow, the shoes changed my spine, the diamonds caught light like trapped stars. Janet swept my hair into a sleek knot, exactly like my grandmother's for 40 years of boardrooms. She handed me the leather portfolio with the documents Caleb never asked about. Outside, James waited in the Bentley Caleb did not know existed. When I reached the car, his eyes shone. Mrs. Audrey, he said thick-voiced. You look just like her when she was about to end somebody. He pulled to Meridian's private drive. The building rose in limestone and light, glowing from within, my building. 8:45, James said, eyes meeting mine in the mirror. Main entrance. Yes, I said. Let them see the car. The Bentley slid beneath the portico. Thomas, the head valet, clocked the license plate, VMH0001, and straightened. He reached for my door with reverence. Mrs. Hartwell, he said softly. Welcome to Meridian. You could feel the recognition ripple. Staff who had seen only signatures on paychecks and names on documents stood a little straighter. I crossed the lobby, heels ticking on marble, and watched composure crack. The night manager straightened, a server paused mid-stride, a host swallowed hard. Reginald Carter, the head concierge who had started here as a bellman under my grandmother, approached with measured urgency. Everything is set, ma'am, he said. The Churchill room is prepared. Mr. Blackwood is awaiting you upstairs. And my husband? Reginald's expression twitched, professional and personal wrestling. Mr. Hartwell arrived early with the partners. He is currently entertaining the delegation. The pause told me what I needed. Is Charmaine seated? To his immediate right, Reginald said. It has been noted. The observatory lounge overlooked the dining rooms through treated glass. You could see them, they could not see you. Maurice stood by the window, silver at his temples, eyes on the Churchill room below. Punctual as always, he said without turning. She would be proud. I joined him. The Churchill room was Meridian's jewel, circular with a sweeping view of the city, a chandelier that cost more than most annual salaries, a table for 20 set for 12. Caleb sat where he believed the head would be, his back to the doors, a mistake my grandmother would have mocked. Never sit with your back to the entrance, she said. That is how you miss seeing your enemies arrive. He was gesturing with his champagne flute, face flushed with wine and self-importance. The executives, all Black Americans from our Atlanta partners, wore expressions of polite interest that did not hide their fatigue. They had heard this pitch from a dozen firms. Morrison sat to Caleb's left, face red, tossing in comments that Caleb expanded as if they were his own ideas. Blackstone hunched over his phone, managing some crisis, likely Charmaine's increasingly obvious interest in my husband. Charmaine angled toward Caleb, chin dipped, hand lingering on his sleeve a beat too long. Reeves laughed too loudly from the far end, desperate to be seen. He is on his fourth glass, Maurice observed. He tumbles after 3. Let him, I said. Maurice tapped his tablet. Photographer is in the southeast corner with a clear angle. Appetizers served at 9, mains at 9:45. Your entrance at 9:15. He showed me another screen. Membership records, violations, payments, secrets. My grandmother's meticulous system laid bare. Reeves has 2 violations this month alone, Maurice said. He will not last the week. Below, Caleb stood and raised his glass. Even without sound, I could see the mouth shapes. To the future, to partnerships that transcend borders, to success lesser people cannot imagine. Lesser people. I felt the phrase click into place like a lever finally fully thrown. At precisely 9:10, Caleb lifted his glass again. Maurice checked his watch. 5 minutes, he said quietly, and left to light the fuse. I moved to the doorway. He passed between chairs with practiced ease, bent to Morrison's ear, and whispered 5 words. Morrison's color vanished. He lurched to his feet so fast his chair crashed into the credenza. Blackstone, not knowing why, stood too, hierarchy's reflex. Reeves scrambled up and banged his knee. One by one, the rest followed, rising because the man next to them rose. Only Caleb remained seated, wearing the half-smile of a man who has missed the joke. What is going on? He asked, annoyed. Morris's voice carried like a bell. Ladies and gentlemen, Mrs. Audrey Hartwell, owner and chair of V. Monroe Holdings. Proprietor of Meridian. Silence fell so quickly it rang. Even the servers froze. The only sound was Charmaine's sharp inhale. I pushed open the doors and walked into my domain. The clicks of my heels counted down the seconds of Caleb's old life. I did not hurry. The dress moved like shadow, diamonds threw tiny rainbows across the walls. I watched Caleb's face change. Confusion as he tried to process why everyone was standing for his plain wife. Recognition as he took in what I wore, worth more than he claimed we had in savings. And finally horror, as the words and the woman clicked together. He reached for his glass and knocked it over. Champagne bled across linen. Charmaine's hand flew to her throat. The color drained from her face until her makeup looked like a mask. She took 2 small backward steps. Maurice pulled out the chair at the head of the table, the one Caleb had occupied, and I sat. My grandmother made me practice sitting and standing until I could do both like a queen. The chair accepted me like a throne recognizes its rightful claimant. Morrison, operating on the ancient knowledge of power, pushed Caleb toward a side chair meant for junior associates and extras. Caleb sat heavily where he belonged. Morrison started to speak, apologies, explanations, but I lifted a hand. Silence obeyed. I turned to the executives, who were watching with open interest. Ladies and gentlemen, I said, voice calm. Shall we discuss the real proposition? I glanced at Caleb's presentation. My husband's deck, while enthusiastic, lacks certain details about our property holdings in Atlanta, our partnership with Turner Group in Dallas, and the development rights we hold in Miami. Brows lifted. You have holdings in Atlanta? One of them asked. 3 commercial properties in Buckhead, 2 in Midtown, I said, sliding my phone across the table with a portfolio already queued. 97% occupancy with premium wait lists. Caleb made a sound like air escaping a punctured tire. I did not look at him. Maurice placed his tablet by my hand. I scrolled, casual, almost bored. Morrison, I read aloud. 3 violations for inappropriate conduct with staff. Approved for continued membership despite infractions. Interesting. Morrison's face purpled. Misunderstandings, he muttered. Blackstone, I continued. Membership approved after a 2-year campaign. 17 letters from your wife, Charmaine. Impressive persistence. Charmaine whimpered. Reeves, I said, attempted to donate $50,000 to expedite membership. When informed we do not accept bribes, your father-in-law threatened to review our permits. Creative. Reeves' mouth flapped, soundless. I set the tablet down and finally looked at my husband. His face had gone gray. Caleb Hartwell, I said. Current membership status, under review. His voice cracked. Under review? Maurice stepped forward. We have standards at Meridian, Mr. Hartwell. Members who embarrass their spouses, describe them as too plain for polite company, and instruct them to stay in their lane, reveal a deficit of character incompatible with our values. Caleb's chair scraped the marble. He surged to his feet, gripping the table so hard his knuckles went white. Audrey, we need to discuss this privately now. I scrolled the tablet again, not bothering to look up. The dismissal was deliberate. You wanted me to stay in my lane, I said. This is my lane. It includes every building you have spent 3 years trying to impress people in. He turned wildly to Morrison and then Blackstone. This is a misunderstanding. I had no idea Audrey had any connection to Meridian. She never said, So, you are incompetent, Morrison snapped. You lived with the owner of the most exclusive club in the city for 4 years and did not know? Caleb's face reddened again. She deceived me. She lied about who she was. Or, I said, lifting my eyes. You never asked. You assumed I was exactly what you wanted, someone inferior to make you feel superior. Charmaine attempted an exit. She stood with practiced fragility, hand to forehead. I feel faint, she murmured. The heat, perhaps I should. Leaving so soon? I asked, sugar over steel. But you have not told everyone about your Tuesday lunches. She froze. Those posts were enlightening, I continued, pulling up Janet's screenshots. Power lunch with brilliant minds. Discussing futures with someone special. Some conversations change everything. All tagged at Meridian. All during Caleb's emergencies. Your husband returns from Chicago tomorrow, does he not? I am sure he will be fascinated. The sound Charmaine made was a slow leak. Blackstone's head snapped up from his phone. His eyes moved from his wife to Caleb, comprehension dawning like a bruise. One of the executives cleared his throat and turned to me. Mrs. Hartwell, he said plainly. Your property portfolio interests us far more than Hartwell and Associates pitch. We propose exclusive use of Meridian space for our American operations and first rights on your Atlanta and Dallas properties. We spent 3 minutes outlining the terms right there. A framework for a $40 million partnership that would give them permanent club space and priority on 3 developments. When Morrison tried to insert a word about the existing proposal, the executive lifted a hand. We prefer partners who value transparency, he said, eyes sliding to Caleb. Respect in personal relationships reflects on professional capability. The deal Caleb had chased for 6 months, gone in less time than dessert. I stood. Maurice, I said. He stepped forward. Please process Mr. Hartwell's membership termination. Effective immediately. No, Caleb said too loudly, voice fraying. You cannot do this. I pay $40,000 a year for that membership. Paid, I corrected. Past tense. Your statement will be prorated through today. This is vindictive. This is business, I said. The kind you have been conducting while telling me I was too plain to understand. Maurice typed. Security will meet you in the locker room if you have items to collect. Your access was revoked at 9:47 p.m. The partners who had cheered Caleb's ascent were already edging away. Morrison had taken 3 steps back. Blackstone stared at his wife with undisguised fury. Reeves was almost out the door. Philip moved like a shadow, capturing every moment. Caleb's collapse, Morrison's retreat, Charmaine's tears, my handshake with the executives. Through it all, I stood at the head of the table in my grandmother's diamonds, no longer hidden, no longer in anyone's lane but my own. Ladies and gentlemen, I said to the room. Dinner has concluded. 3 days later, I sat in the office of my grandmother's attorney, Howard Nathanson, while Caleb signed divorce papers with a trembling hand. He looked smaller, his suit hung looser, his eyes hollow. The prenuptial agreement he had insisted upon lay between us. The document he had presented with a lecture about protecting his future earnings from an ambitious spouse. He had never asked whether I had assets to protect. He signed away any claim to my inheritance with a pen that shook. The apartment contents are specified, Howard said, sliding another page. Mr. Hartwell retains his clothing, electronics, and any furniture he brought into the marriage. Caleb clenched his jaw at retains, as if I were doing him a favor. I have an offer, he said quietly. A small firm in Boston. They do not care about this. Good, I said. I did not need him destroyed. I needed him gone. He paused at the door. Did you ever love me? I loved who I thought you were, I said. You loved who you thought I should be. The last time I saw him, he was loading boxes into a U-Haul while neighbors pretended not to watch. Word of the dinner had spread through every circle that mattered. Mrs. Patterson from Forby brought lemonade to the sidewalk. People treated it like a summer matinee. That afternoon, Janet took me to lunch at Meridian to celebrate. Walking through those doors as myself felt like breathing fully for the first time in years. Some staff bowed. Others clapped. Thomas wiped his eyes. We sat in the main dining room, not the Churchill room with its recent ghosts, and Maurice selected a bottle from the cellar. Dom Perignon, 1996, he said, presenting it like a sacrament. That is a $3,000 bottle, I protested. It was your grandmother's favorite, he replied. She could not afford it during her secretary years. She bought a case the day she closed on Meridian and said, "Someday my granddaughter will drink it in celebration." We raised our glasses. I have a confession, Janet said, eyes bright. I have known about your inheritance all along. Grandma Vivian told me in the hospital, those last weeks. She made me promise to watch over you, but never to tell. Audrey must learn the lesson herself, she said. Being underestimated is a weapon only if you learn to wield it. I thought about every time Janet held her tongue while Caleb diminished me, knowing I could buy and sell him 1,000 times. That must have been torture, I said. Hardest thing I have ever done, she said. But she was right. In the months that followed, I reshaped my life. I kept our small apartment but bought the entire building, not for profit but for purpose. The Vivian Monroe Foundation's first project converted it into affordable housing for women leaving bad marriages. Time and safety to discover their worth. I still shopped at Target when I wanted. I still clipped coupons from the Sunday paper. My grandmother taught me that wealth without wisdom births poverty. When I walked into Meridian now, people stood, not from fear but respect. At business forums on property development and women's economic power, young women took notes while their bosses pretended they had not dismissed me as Caleb's plain wife. Morrison approached me once, face carrying the permanent flush of that night. Mrs. Hartwell, I want to apologize. Stop, I said. Either mean it and change, or stop saying it. He nodded and left. 2 female associates at his firm were promoted that week. Charmaine vanished from the scene after her husband filed. The last I heard, she worked at a boutique in Connecticut, selling handbags to women who did not know her history. On the first anniversary of the revelation, I opened an envelope my grandmother's lawyer had given me with strict instructions to wait. The paper inside was thin, the handwriting shaky. My dearest Audrey, it read, being plain is not about faces or fashion. It is about letting others reveal themselves while you build in silence. They never see us coming because they never see us at all. Men like your Caleb. Yes, I knew what he was the moment you introduced him. Mistake visibility for value. Use their blindness. Build your power. Then stand in your truth and watch them kneel. At the bottom, in a final wavering line, P.S. Caleb is an ass. Destroy him beautifully. I had the letter framed and hung it above my desk at V. Monroe Holdings. More than one executive stood before it, color draining as they wondered whom they might have underestimated. The frame shop owner, Ms. Dorothy, read it while mounting and said, Your grandmother understood the long game. She understood that being underestimated is armor, I said. Dorothy nodded. The best kind. The kind they never see, until it is too late. A year later, I stand in the same office, looking out over a city my grandmother conquered in silence, and I now rule openly. Being plain was never about beauty. It was about staying invisible long enough to see everything and revealing nothing until the perfect moment. Caleb was right about one thing. I was too plain for his world. His world was small, built on appearances and approval. Mine, ours, was built on patience, power, and the exact moment to reveal that the plainest faces often conceal the sharpest minds. If you enjoyed this story, please like, comment, and share this video with your friends. Subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss a powerful story drop.